welcome to Good News from St. Andrew's, Guelph. I'm your host, the Reverend John Borthwick, and it has been an interesting past week. Hey, haircut finally happened. Go out if you are desperate to get your haircut, desperate to, get some styling going. If it's safe and you feel comfortable, go and get a haircut. I feel like a weight has been taken off me, and I feel much better. And support our local businesses. That is one of those businesses where when it gets shut down, it is shut down completely. There's no curbside haircut option. And so support our local businesses as best you can here in the city of Guelph. It's been an amazing week. Our past Sunday, we had Queen from the Guelph Black Heritage Society, the executive director there. A powerful and moving conversation. I hope you had a chance to watch that episode, and if not, do check it out on the Rogers webpage, or check out our own webpage at standrewsguelph.com and see that episode. It was an amazing conversation to be a part of, and I hope that we can continue to have more conversations about systemic racism, about how we take action and do some tangible things to change this world for the better of all. In the continuing theme of this month, Black Heritage Month, we've got a special extra, as we've often talked about, having these extras. And today's extra is from a conversation we had with Marva Wisdom, an amazing Guelph leader, wonderful woman with such passion and enthusiasm to make a difference in her community in so many different spaces and places. And so we had the honor of having a ZOOMerview with her way back in June last year. And I just wanted to give you a clip of that video. And again, you can check out the full conversation at another time, if you like, on our YouTube channel. You can find it under Conversations. And it's just another powerful conversation that she and I had. One of the things that she was talking about that I found really powerful is this. She quoted Martin Luther King Jr. and this piece around the immediacy, the fierce urgency of now. And that becomes a real question for us, I think, to think about today, of the idea of, I hear a lot of folks sort of pumping the brakes a bit and saying, how are we going to address all these big issues in our society around privilege and white supremacy and systemic racism and institutional and structural issues around that are unjust and are making it difficult for all people to have access, for inclusion for all and equity to happen fully. And I hear people sort of saying, it's not like it's going to change today, or, how can we change hundreds of years of history overnight? It's going to take a long time. And I sometimes wonder if that's a little bit of code of some kind to say, we put up our hands and say, it just can't be done. There's nothing we can do. And I want to challenge that today with you in the Rogers community and beyond. I want to challenge that because I think that's a part of this systemic thing that exists. It's a part of maybe privilege. It's a part of something within our society that says it's too big and we can't deal with it. Now, there's all sorts of academic and all sorts of interesting research on this very thing around the capacity for human beings to actually do something. The biggest thing we're seeing right now is related to climate change. If climate change is described as too big for most human beings to hear and listen to, and the impacts of climate change, it actually works in the opposite way that those who would like to advocate for us doing something about climate change, it works in the opposite direction. When it becomes too overwhelming, people just step back and go, what could I possibly do? As opposed to saying, I'm one person and I have the ability to make choices and decisions that can impact my world today. And if everybody did that, then the world would change for the better. And so I just want to challenge our assumption when we hear things about how are we going to change an entire system that's been in existence? how are we going to participate in that? I don't even know what that looks like. So how could I even be a part of that? Well, it's part of the tradition that I've tried to follow, and part of the story of God, story of faith, of people who've tried to follow and tried to hold on to something bigger than themselves, that they didn't always know what the new and next thing was going to be. There was things that needed to happen, and they wanted to see change. They prayed for it, they cried out for it, they wished for it, they hoped for it. And sometimes they didn't know when or where or how any of that was going to happen. And maybe our role as people who try to follow and try to connect with something bigger than ourselves and be people who believe that hope is something worth believing in, maybe our role is to hold on to that hope that something new could happen, that we believe that some change could occur in our society and in our world for the better, for all. And then our specific role is to take action and live as if. To live as if this change is happening. To make decisions and to put ourselves out there and take risks as if it's going to make all the difference. I think that's something to hold on to, perhaps, for today. So I encourage you to check in with this conversation that we're going to share with you, a little clip of it between Marva and I from a few months back, where she talks about Change Starts Now, which is another part of the conversation that we had last week with Queen, related to the Guelph Black Heritage Society's campaign, Change Starts Now. I encourage you to check out that campaign as well. So here's our conversation between Marva Wisdom and myself. Enjoy. But we're a community that also celebrates hope.
Yes.
So, I mean, these things are hard, and it's difficult, and it's big, and it's hard to understand for some folks.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have been living with it their entire lives, so
Yes.
they're not as patient with the folks that are just getting up to speed.
Mm-hmm.
So what's for you personally, like what's fanning the embers of hope for you, and where are you seeing hope in this conversation in the city of Guelph, or even globally? I don't know how far you want to expand that hope, but even if there's tiny embers in Guelph.
Yes. That's a great, I'm going to start with a quote from Martin Luther King on one of the informational pieces that I am using to provide support for folks. And the quote says, "We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action." And that was Martin Luther King Jr. Mm-hmm. And that was how many years ago?
Yeah.
How many years ago? I feel that sometimes we take 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. This time it feels really different, although I'm sure back in the days when Blacks, whites, and Jews and everybody else were walking together for change during the civil rights movement in the States, and some of it spilling over here, that they thought that the change that was happening was going to be lasting, and it was going to continue year after year getting stronger. And so on the one hand, I am extremely hopeful because of how worldwide this is. And I have shared with others that I believe COVID-19 has a lot to do with the world acting almost in unison to injustice. And COVID-19 has allowed us to recognize how vulnerable we all can be. Help us recognize what it's like to have no control of where you go, how long you go for, and also feeling under threat at all times, even from people that you think you trust. We go out to the store and we're wondering, that person may not be wearing a mask, or what if this person is a carrier of COVID-19 and I need to keep my distance? Well, the Black community for the longest time have been seen as, especially if you're a Black male, as the person out there. Could that person be a threat? and the person hasn't done anything, but you're feeling that way. So I call COVID-19 the great equalizer in some ways. So it has provided an opportunity for us, even the have and the have-nots. If you're in your home and you can't get out to buy groceries, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You just can't, you don't have the food that you need for sustenance. In the same way, people who are poor haven't had a chance to have the food for their sustenance or have to be watching and worrying about that. So that's part of the reason why it gives me great hope. It gives me great hope because I do believe that we have a community that has been open for a long time, but is now looking, where do I direct my energies and how do I help? And what do I need to do, as opposed to, we don't really have that problem here. We're just really nice folks. We are Guelph and we are Guelphy. And so there's no racism here. So people are saying that it happens, and it's not just coming from the Black community, but it's coming from, and we know, Indigenous communities. There's a survey that came out that is called the Canadian Race Relations Survey by Environics and the Canadian Race Relations Foundation. And it says that 53% of Indigenous people and 54% of Black people have said that they experience incidents of discrimination on a daily basis. That's really high. So with all of that information is getting out there, and there is fertile ground. So our leaders, at least I know some of our leaders, they are committed to change, and the proof will be in the pudding as we go forward within the next short while to see what action follows. But people are tangibly asked, what do I need to do? As opposed to, I'm sorry to hear, and I didn't realize that. And that's the difference. And that's where the hope lies.
That's awesome. Yeah. Definitely, as your, I don't know if it's your phrase, but certainly the phrase that you're championing is the change starts now.
That's my phrase.
Is that your phrase? Well done. Yes.
I'm copywriting it.
you got to copyright it. It's a great phrase. Change starts now. And I think, what's I think for a lot of people, I think the hope is that there will be tangible action related to it. I mean, acknowledgement is great, and learning is awesome, and stirring up people to discover and learn the history that has been this country and the history that is theirs, and having conversations that will sometimes be awkward and difficult, and sitting in that discomfort for a time for some, and feeling that some people are actually that people are able to name another person as maybe an ally or a safe place for conversations to grow deeper in understanding. I think that's amazing. And I'm hopeful as well that we might see some real change in our country. The hard part of it all is, you just don't know what that looks like. But yes, as I often tell this community here, hope is something that you actually don't know what it'll look like in the end. But holding on to hope is what we're called to do as a people who try to be faithful to Jesus, is the guy we follow, and it's that Good Friday Easter time. I mean, we get the bonus of Easter because we think, oh well, it's all going to be great. We're going to have great songs and the music's going to be awesome. Yeah. But you still have to get through Good Friday. Yes. And if you really embed yourself in Good Friday, it's over. It's done. Yes. He's dead. There's no hope. Yes. And if you can embed yourself in that place and not know what the next piece is going to go, that Saturday is the time I think we're in right now. Yes. And holding on and believing that the will of a collective of people can actually make a difference in this world. And we don't need to know all the answers of how it's all going to work, but we're willing to do the hard work of making those changes. That gives me hope for sure. What a great conversation that Marva and I had, and what a privilege to be a part of that, and an honor to speak with Marva on that Sunday way back when. I encourage you to check out our YouTube channel and to watch the whole conversation. It was a pretty impactful and a meaningful exchange that her and I had that day. Coming up is our worship service from February the 28th, this past Sunday. It's a story in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 8, verses 31 to 38. In it, you hear a bit of this immediacy of Jesus' mission and message, and how that immediacy actually started to impact his best friends, his disciples, that they even wanted to prevent him from taking that risk, taking that next step in this fulsome embodiment of solidarity with those who are vulnerable and in need in a world that is hurting. Some of them said, couldn't we just stay here and not do any of that? We don't have to go and do what you're calling us to do. We could just sit back and enjoy the rest of our lives not participating in that. I encourage you to check out this message of this immediacy of now, that things need to happen now, and we are a part of the change that we want to see in this world. And we think that that's good news.